everyone, to the Scoreboard. Happy Good Friday to everybody. Hope we're all having a good one today. And Easter coming around the corner. You know what else is around the corner is some playoff basketball. Yes, you heard me correctly. Playoff basketball is here, the NBA. Going into their play-in tournaments. We'll go over that here in a little bit. Also, from the weekend, the Masters. And guess what? Rory finally got it done. He almost choked it again. He almost choked it. But he was able to get it done, winning the green jacket for the first time, completing the career Triple Crown. So good for him. And I'll tell you what, it was a pretty good Sunday for the Masters. I was tuned into it. It looked great. It was a lot of fun. Some of the shots that were made, man, Rory's shot, I forget what hole it was, but he curved it around the tree. And I was just like, man, how do you even do that? I can't figure out how to hit a golf ball straight. But my problem is, baseball background, so everything I hit slices. But nonetheless, it was a great Sunday down in Augusta. Congratulations to Rory completing what is the career Grand Slam. I think I said hat trick or something like that. The career Grand Slam. So big congratulations to Rory for doing that on Sunday. We also have NHL playoffs coming up in a few days. Now, the regular season is not over just yet. We do still have a couple of games to take place today, the final games of the regular season. And then on Saturday, the NHL playoffs begin with the Blues taking on the Jets and the Avalanche taking on the Stars. On Sunday, and yes, that is Easter Sunday, it'll be the Devils heading to Carolina to play the Hurricanes, the Senators play the Maple Leafs, and the Wild play the Golden Knights. So playoff hockey is upon us as well as basketball playoffs. Like I said, it is here. It is around the corner. So far, we have had a couple of play-in games played. The Warriors beating the Grizzlies to move into the 7th seed. The Magic beating the Hawks to go to the 7th seed in the East. And both the East and West will feature a 10-8 matchup to see who gets that 8 seed. The Mavericks play the Grizzly in the West. The Mavericks, man, still making the play-in tournament after getting rid of Luka. That is incredible. Good for them. And then the Heat play the Hawks. I'll tell you what, I honestly thought that the Heat and the Hawks were both young teams that were going to become really good. And this was only, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe. They really haven't impressed at all. The Heat, so many problems. Obviously, we know what happened with Jimmy Butler, not showing up to games, getting suspended, not showing up to practice, eventually getting traded to Golden State. And for the Hawks, man, Trae Young was supposed to be the next big thing. I feel like I haven't heard about him, though. What happened to Trae Young? Maybe one of those teams can make an impact in the playoffs, although the Heat and Hawks, whoever moves on is going to have to play the 1 seed Cleveland. And Cleveland had an incredible regular season. They really did. And I don't know if people just don't give them the credit that they deserve, considering it's Cleveland and they've never really done anything in the past forever, unless it's with LeBron. But you should definitely be giving the Cavaliers a second thought here when it comes to who's going to be the most competitive team in these NBA playoffs. I'm excited. We got some new blood in there for the playoffs this year, some new storylines, and I think it's going to be a great playoff for the NBA. We're going to go ahead and jump into some NASCAR talk, though, to start things off, because we are on a bye week, and I do want to make sure that we give enough time to what happened at Bristol this past weekend. Now, this coming weekend on Friday, you have the trucks racing, and on Saturday, you have Xfinity racing. There is no Cup race this weekend. It is Easter Sunday. It is the only bye week for the Cup Series in the season this year. The trucks and the Xfinity cars, they head to Rockingham. Yes, they're back in Rockingham, and I'll tell you what, I am excited for the Xfinity race. Casey Kane, yes, Casey Kane is making his return. Oh, man, you got to love it. You really do. You got to love it. Anyway, so this past weekend, we were at Bristol for the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, even the trucks, yes. And it was interesting. Kyle Larson was attempting the triple. Once again, he wasn't able to complete it as he won 2 of the 3 events and finished second in the truck series. So that was definitely a tough one there. But nonetheless, we had a pretty good race. Now, I wouldn't say that the Cup Series put on the show that we expected it to do. It's not a lot of fun to see that race anymore in the Cup Series. Xfinity cars, truck series, great racing, really good racing. And I have been arguing this fact for a little bit now. I personally think the Xfinity Series has the better racing of the 2 series, or of the 3 series, I should say. Maybe that's just me, but I find the Xfinity races a lot more interesting. Now, I could do without some of the recklessness in those races. Yes, the Xfinity guys lean on each other. Never more obvious than it was at Martinsville, which was honestly just an embarrassment all in all. But the Cup Series, and I'm not going to say anything that isn't known or hasn't been said by anyone. I was listening to Dale Jr. talk about it, listening to Denny Hamlin talk about it. You just can't drive these race cars unless there's nobody in front of you. Denny said on his podcast that going into every corner, so basically 1,000 times, minus cautions, he had to guess what lane the driver in front of him was going to take, and he would have to take the other lane. Otherwise, the car just wouldn't drive right. And we didn't see that really at the beginning of the race. If you remember, everything started really slow, single file. Nobody was pushing because we were thinking we might have the same tire situation that we did last spring at Bristol when nobody could go more than 50 laps. Once the drivers figured out that wasn't going to happen, they started to gas it down. And once that happened, Kyle Larson drove to the front, and he really just never looked back. I am going to get into a little bit more NASCAR talk, but we're coming up on our first commercial break. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back right after this. Gentlemen, we are back with segment number 2 here on the Scoreboard, proudly presented by the Lake Norman Harbor Hippos. Go on down to Huntersville this summer and check out a game. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll be there every now and then. I'll even be throwing out a first pitch at the Lake Norman Harbor's Hippos home game coming up in June. Nonetheless, though, we are going to continue talking about NASCAR Cup Series at Bristol. Lackluster event, really not as exciting as Bristol usually is. And that, we've talked about it time and time again on this show with NASCAR. It's a car problem. And I was listening to Denny Hamlin on his podcast, and I mentioned this before the break, how he said he had to guess what lane the driver in front of him was taking before he could decide what lane he wanted to take. Otherwise, the car just wouldn't drive. And we've talked about the way that the next-gen car drives and the way that it's built to be very underbody. It makes downforce from the bottom of the car, as opposed to what it used to be where the spoiler was what gave the car most of the downforce. They sealed off the bottom of the car. They glued it to the ground. They got the diffuser to help. And that's what makes the racing at Bristol what it is. Everybody's glued to the ground. And you also got to remember, this is a spec race car. There's only so much that the teams can do to the car to make it better, to change the setup, to change the way it drives. First to last was like 0.2 of a second off of each other. And you might think, hey, that sounds great. Everybody's really competitive. Yeah, the problem with that is when everybody's running the exact same pace and there's no tire fall off and everybody's running as hard as they can every single lap because the tires don't matter, that's when you run into the problem of nobody being able to pass. And that's what we saw at Bristol. I mean, there was very limited passing unless it was a lap car or unless you really drove it in hard. It just wasn't the Bristol that we know and love. And I think there's a problem here. I do. Fundamentally, I think we have a problem because if you looked at the grandstands on Sunday, yeah, I'm used to seeing aluminum during the Xfinity races. I'm used to seeing aluminum in the stands during the truck races. But for a cup race at Bristol to be as empty as this one was, fans are telling you something, NASCAR. Are you going to listen? That's really what it comes down to. NASCAR is seeing the numbers go down, and that's probably the only thing that's going to force them to change something, is if people stop watching and people stop showing up. The optics of Sunday's race were not good. It was empty. It was very empty, and it was evident that it was empty. Denny Hamlin is such a good personality to have for the sport, and I know I've quoted his podcast a couple of times, but it's the way that he phrases some things makes me think that NASCAR just doesn't care, because he says that there's no changes coming, but he knows of a few changes that could be made. You get rid of the underbody of these cars, you drop the spoiler, you raise them off the ground a little bit, and you make them handle like garbage, basically. That's what used to happen. People would actually have to drive and save their tire and not wreck their race car, instead of what we have now, which is just every single lap as hard as you can, like it's a qualifying lap. It's not as entertaining as you might think. It sounds good. Sounds great. Everybody's so competitive. The problem is you can't pass when everybody's running the same exact speed. I mean, look at Formula One. Did you watch Japan? The Suzuka GP? Oh, that was horrible. Oh, it was 56 laps of parading. I think there was one pass in the top 10. I hope that's not what we're getting to with NASCAR, but we've seen it happen before. Think of Indy last year when we went back to the oval for the first time. Not a single green flag pass for the lead in that entire race. Unless somehow you got a good restart and you were able to clear the leader, there were no green flag passes for the lead. Once things got strung out, it was follow the leader. And that's kind of what we had at Bristol. Now, Kyle Larson dominated. They didn't even talk about Kyle Larson all that much because of how much he dominated that race. Not something you're used to seeing with modern day NASCAR, but old NASCAR, it would never be uncommon for one driver to dominate a race and even finish multiple laps ahead of the field. So you got to pick and choose our battles here. I think the most important thing is NASCAR needs to understand that the car is just not doing what they want it to do. Hopefully changes are in the future. Looking forward for the NASCAR guys. We're off this week on Sunday. A reminder, it is Easter Sunday. So obviously they're going to take that day off. When we come back next weekend, oh boy, we get to go super speedway racing. Yes, we go to Talladega. And I know people are going to say, oh, I'm so excited for Talladega. This might be like the first time ever that I'm just not excited for Talladega. And the reason might not shock you, but it's because of what the package has been recently. At Talladega, if you get out of line and try to make a move when they're double file, you're going to the back, unless the leaders are running half speed. Once again, another problem with this race car. The super speedway package, just not what we want it to be. I don't want to be all doom and gloom with NASCAR. I really don't, because I love it and I think that it's great and entertaining and fun. But man, they got to figure something out. Because right now we're banging our heads against a wall and we're expecting something to change, but nothing is changing. Now, eventually they're going to change the car. We're not going to be in the next Gen 7 car forever. I just hope we don't go backwards once we do go to the next generation of race car. But I don't know when that's coming. I don't know if it's ever, I would assume eventually it's going to be a few years down the line, but right now there's apparently no word of changing the next gen or moving on to the Gen 8 car, which I haven't even heard anything about a Gen 8 race car. Now, I know that NASCAR has their EV car, the electric car that they've been working on. I know they also had, I think it's Garage 56 is what it is, or 50, something like that, where they raced at Le Mans. NASCAR brought a car to Le Mans. It was awesome. They passed the prototype. But I have not heard about the 8th generation of Cup car being developed, being talked about, being, nothing. So we'll see. Hopefully NASCAR this offseason, with some of the changes that I'm expecting, and you got to think also, there's still that lawsuit looming over NASCAR filed by Front Row and 2311 Racing regarding the antitrust violations for NASCAR. Maybe if there's a positive outcome for the teams and drivers in that, maybe then they can say, okay, we're willing to spend some money for a new race car, or we're willing to spend some money to drastically change the car that we have now to make it a little bit better. And personally, I can think of a few things that they can do. Excuse me, I just hit the microphone there. Number one, get rid of the underbody of this car. Get rid of the diffuser. Go back to how it used to be, where you could see all the, gadgets. You got to go back to having a underbody that's not covered, and that'll help the car stop taking off like an airplane, by the way. I don't know if they ever considered that one. Number two, you got to put horsepower back in the race cars. You got to make it so that the driver can't just hammer down the throttle. And number three, you got to get the car off the ground a little bit and get it driving like crap, basically. Let it drive like a dumpster for all I care. Just give the drivers something to work with. And I know what NASCAR wanted to do with the next gen car is promote the driver skill. So we're going to give them cars that are very similar. The problem is the cars are too easy to drive, so everybody's driving the same lap time, and the driver's skill is really not being shown off because of how easy it is to drive the car. Maybe if they made it harder to drive and they could keep this generation car, just make a few changes. Remember what they did to the car of tomorrow and how many different versions of the car of tomorrow we had? We had the wing with the splitter, and it was awful. So they got rid of the wing, and then they got rid of that splitter, which was awful, and they made it closed off on the front, and then they fixed other things. They put horsepower in the race car. And by the end of the COT era, those cars were good. They were enjoyable to watch. And then obviously we went to Gen 6, which had its own problems. Never forget the season where they went full 750 horsepower in those things, and it was a great season. I don't know if we're going to get back to that ever again, though. I don't know what NASCAR has in their pocket for us moving forward. But nonetheless, we'll head to Talladega, and we'll be somewhat entertained. We're going to our halfway point here. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We're back after this. is segment number 3 here on the Scoreboard, proudly presented by the Lake Norman Harbor Hippos. We're going to get into the world of the NHL and NBA playoffs. We started the show talking a little bit about the play-in tournament for the NBA. Now, I do need to let you guys know, I think I gave you the disclaimer to start. I don't remember, but today's episode is recorded earlier. It is not live. It is pre-recorded. Friday, when you hear this, Friday night is the final play-in games. At 7 o'clock, you have the Heat playing the Hawks. And then at 9:30, it's the Mavericks versus the Grizzlies. Then starting on Saturday, round 1 of the NBA playoffs, Milwaukee Bucks play the Indiana Pacers at 1 o'clock. That will start the NBA playoffs. There are a few teams to watch this year. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on the Lakers. I know everybody else is, but seeing how they were for the past year and a half or so, even 2 years, and now they have Luka. They traded for him mid-season. Luka and LeBron are probably the best duo in the NBA right now, which is insane to say that LeBron is still as good as he is. But I'm going to be keeping my eye on the Lakers. Now, I don't think that I'm going to pick them to win it all this year. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they go to the NBA Finals. Now, obviously, you have the Thunder, who were far and away the best team in the West. The 2 seed in the West was, 12, 16 games behind the Thunder in the standings? 16 games, exactly. 16 games. Man. So the Oklahoma City Thunder were far and away the best team in the West. And for the East, the Cavaliers weren't running away with it, but they did keep their distance from the Celtics for a majority of the year, which is why they ended up winning the East by 3 games. 64-18. What a great year for the Cavs. But the Thunder, best team in the NBA. 68 wins, 14 losses. How many people are talking about the Thunder? Not that many. Could you name the starting 5 for the Oklahoma City Thunder? I'm waiting. Exactly. Now, I know they got some guys on there that you're going to want to pay attention to. Obviously, Chet Holmgren, one of the top picks in the draft. He got hurt. He didn't play a year. Now he's seemed to have come into his own. You have Shai Gilgeous, who is an MVP candidate this year. Personally, I don't think he should be the MVP. I think it's Nikola Jokic, and it's not even a question, but they're not going to give the MVP to Jokic because they don't want to put him in a category with LeBron and Jordan and all the greats of the NBA, which I don't understand. I never will understand. The guy is the best player in basketball over the past, 5, 6, 7 years now? And he does it quietly as the best player in the NBA. I mean, when you look at Nikola Jokic's stats for the year, 29 points a game, 12 rebounds a game, and 10 assists per game. Averaged a triple-double. Now, that's not the craziest thing in the world to do anymore. Back when Russell Westbrook did it, it was a huge story. And now it seems like it's just not a big deal to average a triple-double. Or it's just not a big deal for Jokic because he does it so casually. I mean, it's crazy. When you look at his assists per game over the years, his points per game over the years, this is the first time that he's averaged double-digit assists. He got close in 22-23 at 9.8 a game. But this is the first time that he's averaged a triple-double. Now, I don't think he's going to win the MVP. It's probably going to be SGA. just because it's his turn. You've heard that saying plenty of times, I'm sure of it. Oh, it's his turn. Oh, it's his turn to win a MVP, where maybe he's not the best one for the job, for the award. But at the same time, you have Nikola Jokic, who is the best player, and you just don't want to give him the award because you don't want to put him in that elite category. You know, LeBron James could have won 10 MVPs. Jordan probably could have won 10 MVPs. Jokic can probably win himself 10 MVPs. The voters just aren't going to do that because other people deserve to get the spotlight. At least that's what it seems like when they vote on these awards. Anyway, moving on to some of the matchups that we're going to be seeing in the NBA playoffs coming up. You have number 4, the Denver Nuggets, playing number 5, the LA Clippers, in their own stadium for the first time. The Lakers will be playing the Timberwolves, the 6th seed. And the number 2 seed Rockets play the number 7 seed Warriors. Now, 2 and 7, you might think that the spread between those teams is a lot, but they were only 4 games separated in the regular season. And when you look at who was 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, everybody was on top of each other at the end of the regular season, which is what made the play-in games so important and so intriguing, and the end of the regular season so interesting in the NBA. Now, you knew who was in for a while. I mean, there was a chance that the Suns could have put together a run at the end of the year, but they went 1-9 in their last few games, and it did not help. It knocked them out of the playoffs. But within that last couple of days of the season, there was so much shuffling in the standings. Houston had 52 wins. Memphis, the 8th seed, had 48 wins. It's a difference of 4 games between 2nd and 8th. That's competitive. That's parity. And you only had 1 team in the play-in. I'm sorry, 2 teams in the East or in the West play-in with a sub 500 record. In the East, everybody in the play-in was either 500 or below. That's just the way it is right now. The East isn't good. I don't know how we fix it. Draft better, I guess, if you're those teams. As far as a prediction, I'll do it now because we're going to be pretty far into the first round next week when I talk to you guys. Coming out of the West, you know what? Let's go with probably the NBA's most not intriguing, but the matchup that the NBA wants. Lakers-Celtics. Why not? Right? Let's go with the Lakers and the Celtics playing in the finals. And I'll take the Lakers. I think LeBron gets another one. I think he deserves another one. And I do think that LeBron James is the best player of all time. Oh, no, so controversial. Yeah, I don't care. I think he's the best of all time. Just looking at what he's doing at this age, he's still one of the top 5 players in the NBA. Maybe top 10. Maybe you could take him out of the top 5 now. But still, what he's doing at this age, for how long he's been doing it, got to give him credit. We're going to go to our final break of the day. When we come back, we'll preview the NHL playoffs, as those are also right around the corner. Don't go anywhere. We're back after this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Scoreboard final segment. We are proudly presented by the Lake Norman Harbor Hippos, proud sponsor of the Scoreboard. Head on out to Huntersville and check out a game this summer. We have our final segment here, and we've been through everything. NASCAR, the NBA. What else? We talked about the Masters, Rory getting the green jacket. Congratulations to him, almost choking it away, but getting it done in a playoff, first playoff since 2017. is, I believe, what the announcers were telling us. But now we get to look forward to the NHL playoffs. Yes, hockey playoffs, best time of the year right around the corner. I am sad. The New York Rangers, defending President Trophy winners, have missed the playoffs. They are only the fourth team in NHL history to miss the playoffs after winning the President Trophy the year before, and they are the first franchise to do it more than once. The New York Rangers did the same thing in the 1992-1993 season, but then they went on to win the Stanley Cup the next year, so maybe there's hope for the Rangers after all. But man, that is brutal. Absolutely brutal. What a sad team, man. What a sad team. I'm going to take a second to rant on this team. No heart, no guts, no care. Like, your backs are against the wall. You're playing Carolina, and you let them go up 4-0. I mean, just zero heart on this team. I don't know what else to say. They were terrible. Watching the Rangers was like sticking needles in my eyes this year. I can't compare it to anything else. It was brutal. I watched pretty much every single game that they've had this year. Well, most of them. And couldn't be more disappointed. But the good news is I get to watch some playoff hockey and not be stressed out. So that's always the positive. And we have some really good matchups coming up in the NHL playoffs. Starting on Saturday, the first game will be the St. Louis Blues on the road against the Winnipeg Jets. The Blues have been on a tear recently. They were one of those teams on the outside looking in a few weeks ago. They went on a tear, winning over 10 games in a row and put themselves in a playoff position. And they've done this before, the Blues. Remember, when they won the Stanley Cup, this was 2019, I believe. They were the worst team in the NHL on January 1st. They went on a run, they snuck their way into the playoffs, and they go on to win the Stanley Cup. Anything can happen in the NHL. So game one, the Blues play the Jets. And then later that night, we get the Avalanche playing the Dallas Stars. Then on Sunday, 3 games are slated. The Devils play the Hurricanes at 3 o'clock. That'll be on ESPN. And the Hurricanes have home ice advantage during this series, which is going to be very important, in my opinion. You also have the Senators playing the Maple Leafs, a little Canadian matchup there. And then we'll end the night with the Minnesota Wild, playing the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Now, Vegas is a team that has been a perennial contender since they've been introduced to the NHL, but they didn't make many headlines this year as being one of the teams to beat. So I'm going to be interested to see what they end up doing this year in the playoffs. Remember, they do have a Stanley Cup already, even though they're, what are they, 10 years old now? Man, I hope they're not 10 years old. They're getting close to that, though. Getting close to 10 years. As we look forward into the playoffs, though, I will, like I said, give you my prediction. Coming out of the West, we'll start with the West. I think it's going to be Dallas. I think the Dallas Stars have the depth, they have the firepower, and they have the goaltending to really compete in the playoffs. And I know we've said that for the past 3 years with them, and they haven't pulled through yet. But I do think that this is going to be the year for Dallas to go to the Stanley Cup. They haven't been there since 2020, if you remember that, when they played the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was in an empty stadium too. Out of the West, I'm gonna do it. Why not? Carolina's going to play for the Stanley Cup. I know I just jinxed them. I'm sorry. But hey, this has got to be the year, right? You made all these moves during the season to get players. You move people in, move people out. The goaltending seems to be okay right now. I'm going to continue to harp on that until they fix the goaltending or until they win the Stanley Cup and shut me up. You know, that's also an option that, hey, maybe this tandem can actually get it done. And I'm just being a naysayer, which is completely possible. That's my matchup. I got the Dallas Stars playing the Carolina Hurricanes, and let's take Carolina in Game 5, right? Why not? Why not? I don't think Washington is going to be all that much of a threat in the playoffs. Now, I do think they'll beat Montreal, but I don't see them getting past either the Devils or Carolina, whoever ends up winning that series. Tampa's going to be a team to watch, even though they don't have the firepower they once had. I don't see Toronto or Ottawa really being a team to watch. This might be the best year for Carolina to go to the Stanley Cup. There's no Rangers this year. No Rangers to knock them out. So if they're going to do it, this is the year to do it. We'll see what ends up happening. Like I said, first game coming up on Saturday. You've got St. Louis playing the Winnipeg Jets. And when you look at the schedule, we have pretty much 3 or 4 games every single day. That's the way it should be. They're staggering the start times. No 2 games are going to start at the same time. That's exactly what you want to see, especially when you go into weekday games like on a Monday. You got 7, 7:30, 9:30, and 10 o'clock as start times. That's what you want. You want to separate it so that when this game's at commercial or this game's at their intermission, you can pop into another game and continue to keep the eyes on the NHL. I know my eyes are going to be on the NHL and the NBA as we go through the playoffs, but we are coming up on the summer stretch where it's going to be golf and baseball and NASCAR, obviously. We'll be talking about NASCAR. I haven't talked too much baseball yet, and I think I said I was going to do it this week with the torpedo bats that have been so popularized, I guess, over the past few weeks in Major League Baseball. I'm going to do a deep dive on the bats that are being used in the near future, going over who's using them, why they're using them, what the advantage might be, and most importantly, if it is or is not legal. That seems to be a question for a lot of pitchers and a lot of fans alike. But we are coming up on the end of the program here, so we're going to go ahead and go over some things that happened on this day in sports history. 2021, Patrick Marleau ties Gordie Howe's NHL record of the most regular season games played with 1,767. That is a lot. On this day in 1997, Martin Brodeur, goaltender for the New Jersey Devils, becomes the second goalie in NHL history to score. Yes, he scored a playoff goal. That's pretty awesome for a goaltender. It was also on this day in 1983, Nolan Ryan got to 3,500 strikeouts. 1987, Julius Erving, Dr. J, becomes the third NBA and ABA player to score 30,000 points. Here's one for you, not really sports related, but about a sports player. 1925, Babe Ruth had ulcer surgery. How about it? And the oldest thing that we have on the list, as always, 1860. Champion of England, Tom Sayers and American John Heenan fight a brutal 2-hour and 27-minute draw that ends only after police stop the fight. And this was in England. It's acknowledged as the world's first title bout, and it ended in a draw. Thanks everyone for tuning into the Scoreboard this week. Appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you enjoy Easter. Have a great Friday. Until next week. See ya.